Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily Zencast. Hosted by your favorite robot from the future, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Operation Legend. The single most un-American and bordering on tyrannical action taken by dear old Donald J. Trump in his first and hopefully only term. Let's talk about it. Have you heard, friends? This is relatively breaking news. Good morning, Trumptopia. It's Wednesday, July 22nd. The world hasn't ended yet, which is hilarious because a lot of people predicted it would have ended last month, and it totally didn't. Here we are. But it's most certainly upside down and backwards in new and innovative ways. President Trump has done so many things in the last 2.5 weeks that have got my head spinning that I didn't know where to start today. And then I turned on the TV just to catch, I basically turn on the TV just to make sure we're not at war with North Korea, China, or Russia yet, right? Because or Iran. Those are the top list of countries we might suddenly break out into war with all of a sudden. And I was about to turn it off until I realized that everyone's waiting with bated breath for Trump to give. In fact, he's probably, if it's on now, I'm going to laugh because I didn't stop to watch it. I just needed to get on the air and talk about Project Legend. Certainly at this point, you have seen and or heard about the unidentified paramilitary soldier cops, aka Gestapo, aka stormtroopers, that under Trump's direct orders have been in Portland and have been videotaped kidnapping, not arresting, because they spoke 0 words to the person they dragged away. That's not how you arrest a person. You explain the situation, you read them their Miranda rights, etc. There's protocol, right? You don't just goose step in American camo with 0 insignia and a generic police badge. And it wasn't a badge. It was a Velcro. It was one of those Velcro things. You usually see it in the movies. You see like FBI and they slap the Velcro thing on the back of the bulletproof vest. These guys had tiny little generic Velcro stick-on patches that said police. Not even federal police. And they certainly refused to answer questions as to what agency they belonged to, why they were arresting and essentially kidnapping individuals into unmarked cars and whisking them away to undisclosed locations. If you haven't seen or heard about this, you should dig into it. It's astonishing. It's the kind of thing that the United States is infamous for interfering with the actions of other governments in other countries. And this is already an old meme, but it seems extra salient and meaningful today. There's a lack of freedom in America. America should invade America to free America, right? And arguably, I think that's how dear old Donnie is selling it to his base. Where the fuck have been the amosexual alt-right patriots that keep blathering about how they're ready and willing to die to defend this country from a tyrannical president? They sure as fuck were foaming at the mouth for Barack Obama to do something that would give them the excuse to to get defensive enough to do something. And here we are on what is, as of today, the third expression of tyranny from Donald Trump. I tried, when I was typing up the cover for this show, I was a little bit like shy about just flat out calling it an actual act of tyranny. Because I've heard the arguments about why it's not. These unidentified paramilitary soldier cops are supposedly defending the sacred federal buildings in Portland. Now, let's take a moment and get really real about something. The right and President Trump are fear-mongering about Portland in a way that would make it sound like the entire city is burning to the ground right now because of crazy Soros agent, socialist, Marxist rebels. Like, that's the kind of talk used by the Empire to, discredit the rebellion in Star Wars. It's funny how many Americans, for a quick sidebar, it's funny how many Americans seem to be enamored with the dark side and Darth Vader and all the evil in that franchise, and have transferred it to somehow believing like that's what we are. That's what they want this country to be, the Empire, not the rebels. It blows the mind. But I digress. The fear-mongering about Portland is radically inaccurate. The protest is limited to like a 2.5 or 3 square block area, right? It's a relatively tiny patch of the city where they've camped out and have expressed their constitutionally protected right to demonstrate and protest. Have there also been opportunists and agitators and people who were, quote, really only here for the violence on their side? Of course there are. But what the fuck is the draw to the individuals in the uniforms of these unidentified paramilitary soldier cop units that are whisking away people that are busy doing nothing but walking home from a protest? Or shooting them in the face from too close of a range with supposedly non-lethal ammunition that fractures the skull into a million pieces. Because that's what happened to another gentleman who was just exercising their right, their constitutionally protected right, to criticize and protest their own government. And the other like really offensive and painful thing to watch, although it's impressive how he takes it, a vet, an American vet from the Marines, if I remember correctly, walked up to one of these unidentified paramilitary soldier cop units or squads or whatever you call them, and peacefully tried to engage in a conversation with them. And his intent was to question them about how they felt about the oath they took and the orders they're following. That's like if C-3PO, C-3PO is technically a vet because he was always part of the resistance, but that's like if your grandfather who fought for your rights, or your uncle who fought for our rights and our freedoms, got beat down by your own government, right? Like, think about it in those terms. This guy was a vet. Now, I've got complicated opinions about the military-industrial complex. And so the irony is not lost on me. Here is a proud former member of the military-industrial complex who fought to defend this country on foreign soil from foreign aggressors that never even got anywhere near our shores. And I say that with like venom in my mouth because there's a lot of criticism that's valid and should be spoken about past military actions by the military-industrial complex in third world countries. But arguably, inside the little box of patriotism, this guy is a war hero. And he gets a beat down and he stands for it. He doesn't fall down. The only reason he turns away from them is because he got tear gassed in the face from like point blank range. And he gets walloped by 3 different guys. They broke his hands. It's a miracle they didn't like continue beating him down. I think they realized, and it's funny, he towered over them. If you watch the video, he's taller than all of the guys beating him by like a head and a half. At least that's the way I saw the video when it first hit the airwaves, and I didn't look at it just now, but so maybe I might be exaggerating, but he definitely looked taller than most of the guys in military camouflage gear pretending to be policemen. And I think these guys must have stopped beating him down from some level, like an instinctual, like, he's not falling over, he's tougher than he looks. Because they all sort of hesitated and they looked like they wanted to hit him some more, and then they backed away. First thing, where are those amosexuals foaming at the mouth to defend America against tyranny from Barack Obama? Where are they now? Because all criticisms that are valid or imaginary about that president, about the past president, because I've got my own critique, right? Like, it is every American's right to be able to freedom, right? That's what freedom in America means. I can criticize the government and the president. So I've got my own critiques, but it's way beyond this at this point. There was these people foaming at the mouth that were doing beyond the pale. They weren't criticizing in any meaningful way. They were masturbating to the idea of shooting him and everyone who supported him because he was a tyrant, because of his abuse of power, because of his tyrannical overreach, right? And from my perspective, if I were to set down all of the things that I did find offensive about Obama, which there were plenty, he never did anything like this. Ironically, though, Donald Trump could not have sent out this secret police to Portland if it hadn't have been for weird laws put into place by both Obama and presidents before him. But put a pin in that. I've talked about 2 wings, 1 bird on the show before, but I don't want to get too sidetracked, because this is the one wing getting hijacked by Trump, or by, well, I wouldn't put it that way, because I don't think I think Trump wants to believe, my opinion is so complicated about what Trump is and what might be going on with him. But I think if we take him at face value as an individual, as opposed to a puppet and trying to figure out what that puppet is doing, but if he's just Trump, and what is he doing in power? What is he doing in office? And one of the things that I think he really did personally intend to achieve, which is to convert and or hijack the Republican Party. Maybe not so much the elite that ultimately were controlling it. I think he was trying to see if he could scoop out from underneath of those in the shadows behind the RNC, behind the GOP, right? Because there's always the public facing, and then there's the obscure, the occult. And I don't mean wizards and magic and whatever. I mean just the hidden, those who hide in the shadows behind the public faces of everything. I think he wanted to see how much of that base he could win over for himself. And I still think that there was some validity to the theory that what Trump really wanted to do was launch his own media company, be his own Fox News, or take over Fox News and co-opt it. But Digressing. It is insane that as of right now, and that's right, I was going to see if he has as of yet busted out or is performing his little press conference. And I'm going to wrap this up real soon, specifically because I want to catch that press conference. And I'm actually mad at myself for not having left the TV on so that it would be rewindable right now, because I didn't. Trump. Let's see if I just type in Trump. If I get like live, he's on the air right now. Not in this news app. Let's try just the internet. But my point is, this is the most intense, overt, clear, obvious, undeniable push towards a tyrannical state or status that Trump has successfully or seemingly successfully attempted to pull off. And it has been a slow creep, but now it's clearly ramping up because he's announcing Operation Legend, which, from what I understand at this moment, is going to be him deploying larger groups of unidentified, anonymous, paramilitary soldier cops on American cities to terrorize American citizens, kidnapped and abduct in the name of safety and security, American citizens. Where is the outrage from his base? Where is the outrage from the homosexuals foaming at the mouth to defend America from a tyrannical government? They're busy masturbating to the boogaloo and the idea of shooting other American citizens because of civil war, right? Let's take note of that. The supposed defense against tyrannical government has been bypassed into an obsession with civil war. Those are totally different. Now, the South long romanticized civil war as self-defense from a tyrannical government. But what it really is today is the idea of killing those who live in this country who do not meet the ideals of those who are foaming at the mouth to purge this country. Because they have no issue that they're defending, right? The South was defending slavery. Never forget that bullshit. The South was mad at the North for wanting to abolish slavery and live up to the aspirational statement that all men are created equal. Which is obviously bullshit, right? I mean, in terms of those who wrote it, they wrote, all men are created equal, and also provided a provision that said, well, slaves count as 1/3 of a person. So no individual slave can vote, but the slave masters can have increased political influence based on how many slaves they own. There's so much misinformation and conspiracy nonsense being blown everywhere on all sides of the issue. They are playing everyone against the middle, right? By polarizing and extremifying everyone. And they're doing it just as much through fear-mongering and made-up nonsense as they are by actually targeting people on each side and trying to radicalize them. In other words, since its inception, for example, Fox News has been falsely radicalizing the left. In other words, they'll take some leftist thing and exaggerate the shit out of it in order to fearmonger. I mean, the Fox News spectrum of alt-right media has been masturbating to the idea of some sort of Marxist socialist takeover in America since the mid-90s. It hasn't really happened, right? And yet they keep beating that drum. But here comes Trump, a self-proclaimed stable genius that can, I love what they wrote. I alone can fix this, he said. So much good fixing. It's so fixed right now. So much winning has happened since he got into office. And now he's sending stormtroopers. He's sending big people, big men with guns to oppress American citizens. This aggression cannot stand, man. To quote my favorite imaginary fictional savior, the Dude, this aggression will not stand. Now, let's back up. Let's back up just a bit. Why would a president who ran on fighting the forces of tyranny turn about face and behave acting like the author of tyranny? Why would a president, this is a sidebar here, but why would a president who claimed COVID-19 was a total and absolute hoax totally flip-flop and now be telling his base to put on the masks? And they're bending over backwards to rationalize this bullshit, by the way. I've seen it. There's somebody, and I don't mean to out them, obviously. I believe in, like, my show is not about people individually, but rather opinions expressed and the collective thinking process. But somebody DM'd me in the last, 48 hours to express their support for Trump and to suggest that I have him on my show. I'm like, as if Trump would take my call, right? As if I want their Gestapo to listen to my show at this moment. But the funny thing about this DM was that, I responded with I don't think they understood where I stood on Trump and what my opinion was. And they got so worked up that they told me to stop, responding, and then they blocked me. And I'm like, you contacted me, and you can't handle my opinion. You shouldn't be contacting people. Don't DM anybody if you're not willing to deal with the conversation you're going to have. Obviously, when it comes to people being abusive, by all means, exercise your right to block. But I was doing nothing but answering their questions and then responding with my thoughts on what Trump is doing. I wasn't berating them individually. I wasn't threatening them individually. So it's ridiculous, right? But the thing that was expressed, it was hilarious. I informed them, because they weren't watching Trump live on TV. Despite being an amorous Trump supporter, I was watching Trump live on TV, and told them in real time, Trump just did a complete about face and is promoting mask wearing, even though he believes that the thing's a complete and total hoax. And first they responded with, well, he never said that. I'm like, no, he totally did. I watched him say it on live TV. Second, oh, well, he's just playing their game. And I laughed. I'm like, of course he's playing their game. He is one of, quote, unquote, them. And I sent them my very first Trump meme, which is the Batman and Robin template, where Batman's bitch smacking Robin. And Robin is saying, only Trump can stand up to the NWO. And Batman's like, he is the NWO. Trump is the New World Order, folks. Because the New World Order is not some regimented, super effective, secret society. It is the infection of virological thinking, of spiritual disease. That's what the New World Order really is. And it's not new. It's ancient. But I put pins all over the board on that because I've talked about it before. Go find it in the show. And I'll talk about it again, so don't stress. If you hop around and you don't hear that, I'll come back to it. It's always true. When I say put a pin on the board, imagine a big, giant cork board in the shared imaginary room that we're having this conversation in, right? You and I, dear listener. And by the way, I need more comments, folks. Y'all need to show up on my social media and engage. I hope that doesn't violate my EULA. I think I'm flirting close with it. But anyways, I humbly invite you all to come to sprecher.com/Zencast and drop your thoughts and comments on all the episodes. And I humbly invite you to, if you agree with this statement, that what Trump is doing right now is the most un-American thing he has ever done out of a spectrum of un-American things that he has done. And if you feel, the same way I do, I humbly invite you to share this episode or memeify my words, because I don't got time. I mean, I try every once in a while, but I digress. My social media platforms, Instagram, @Mr. Zeppo, Facebook, The Incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, or the (almost) Daily Zencast. Check those out. Let me know what you think. I will discuss your opinions anonymously on the show in a future episode. All right, I want to close with this, friends. We are living in increasingly dangerous times. There's a very real disease that's new and spooky and weird. And by that I mean that, it has effects that we haven't fully analyzed and understood yet. And that we don't know the limits of. We don't know how virulently dangerous or deadly it would be if we did absolutely nothing about it, the way a lot of COVID deniers would fancy we should be doing, right? There are various forms of the anti-COVID side of the spectrum. There are people who think it's totally fake. I mean, in other words, it does not exist. They think that everybody who's ever been in the hospital is a mannequin. I've seen that post, and I'm like, just because there's an image of doctors using medical dummies, which are used to practice procedures on, does not mean that proves that every person who's ever been in the hospital with COVID is a mannequin. It means they were practicing and or teaching new staff how to do the things they need to do. That's a necessary step. You don't just graduate from medical school and are perfectly great at working with teams of people and doing procedures according to the protocols at a new hospital you've never been to. So, there's PSYOP everywhere, folks. And we need to stop judging each other over which PSYOP we adhere to and realize that what we all need to do is abdicate the PSYOP and speak truth to power and call out things that are psychologically manipulative content. And let me tell you this. When it comes to Gestapo tactics, what really sucks is that it's a double-edged sword. It is simultaneously PSYOP, propaganda. In other words, they bullshit and lie about the conditions and the people that they claim make it necessary to implement these kinds of tactics, and then they fucking kidnap innocent protesters, etc., etc. They use it to oppress they will be using this to oppress you, the American citizenry, in as many ways as possible, by keeping you living in fear of other Americans, by whisking you away if they judge you unacceptable for whatever reasons they might have, and to keep those who are already whipped up in anger and rage against their fellow Americans foaming at the mouth. Operation Legend must not stand. All rational, thoughtful Americans, irregardless of political party, Democrats, Green Party, there's like a million third parties. Sorry, I don't have them all listed here. But, I don't care if you're an anarchist or a Republican, for shit's sake. We must unite in a uniform no. We gotta smack baby Trump on the face and the hands and go, sorry, buddy, you cannot do this. And I don't mean let's vote him out. I mean we need to stand in opposition to this right now. And it doesn't have to be by getting suckered into more violence on the streets, my friends. As another friend of mine was sharing with me and their thoughts recently on a phone call, we can do a nationwide global strike. We're already set up for it. We've already been on lockdown for months and months. Let's just everybody, even if you have to go to work, especially, if you are sitting at home and are, have the luxury of being able to, if you're lucky enough to have the luxury to be able to work from home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, let's create a network to support each other somehow that's independent of the fucking government and organize and schedule a nationwide lockdown, just a total strike, and fuck all, see what happens, right? And let's not go out on the streets and get pepper sprayed by cops in military gear. Let's not go out on the streets and get kidnapped by unmarked, unidentified, impossible to hold accountable Gestapo-like stormtroopers. Let's organize a way that we can all sit down in unity and express how this will not stand. If we allow ourselves to stay distracted with the mask debate, with the arguments about whether or not COVID-19 is a real disease or nanotechnology or caused by 5G, if we keep wasting our time on that bullshit, then that poem about how they came for these people and I said nothing, and they came for the next people and I said nothing, and they came for the next group of people and I said nothing, and when they came for me, there was no one left to speak out because that's it. I don't remember where that poem comes from off the top of my head, but it just sort of like peaked in, it just sort of popped up right now in my awareness. Like, that's going to happen here in America if we don't unite and just drop all the bullshit treadmill arguing for ideological argument's sake distractions that they've got us hooked on. If you've got people in your social media circle that are more interested in screaming and yelling about a given issue, just tell them it's not worth it because they are distracted from what is emergent tyranny in this administration. And if they refuse to give that any thought, just block them temporarily. You can snooze people for 30 days. What if we snoozed everybody that was out there ignoring this issue in favor of whatever other issue they've hooked on, right? At any rate, I'm just spinning my wheels now, friends. I'm going to go see how much of this press conference I can catch. And then I've got some regular, ordinary, real-life errands to take care of. But I will be back later this evening, I hope. I'm worked up. I was in a funk and I wasn't feeling it, but I am now worked up. And remember, friends, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. If you are overly outraged and hooked on the outrage, you've been caught in an ego trap. People will be freaking out about this, and the question, what on earth can we do, will come up. And I'm saying, I think we should do the one thing we haven't ever allowed ourselves to do in the past, and that's to unify in deep, therapeutic, healing, spiritual practice, aka meditation. And the speaking of truth to power. And the subversive healing of those suffering from corruption. Stop hating the bad guys. Stop hating Donald Trump, right? Because that just suits his purposes and the purposes of those who manage him. They want half the nation so outraged that they are blind with rage against the puppet in office. They do that every cycle. Doesn't matter who's in office. They try to whip half the country into blind outrage against that person, irregardless of the actual facts. And they try to seduce the other half into blind faith, admiration of the puppet in office, regardless of the facts. I have observed this in real time since Ronald Reagan. And we've got 100 days till the election? Something like that. And Trump is going to try to do exponentially, increasingly outrageous things between now and then. And we should not tolerate it. All right, friends. That's what I got to say for now. I will be back with you later this evening. So if you've got thoughts and comments you want included in the show tonight, be sure you visit my social media for this show, the Almost Daily Zencast on Facebook, or just go directly to the root source, Sprecher.com/Zencast. As always, folks, remember to look within. The only rabbit hole worth truly diving into is the one at the center of your mind. May peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. May fear, hate, and anxiety be healed